Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this card, Encroaching Shadows. This is something that I evaluated earlier today. This is one of the newly revealed cards just from today's reveals. And in my initial impressions video, I mentioned I thought it was like a Heimerdinger emote. It had some potential. And as you can see, like in the video, towards the end, I was thinking, man, this could actually be really solid. Now, very promptly after because the video is just pulled from my stream, very promptly after the video ended, on my stream, I was thinking about it more and more, and eventually I came to the conclusion that I think this card is actually super strong. And that's kind of like what Heimerdinger emote is. It's like, it's a card that feels like it has a lot of potential, but maybe just something maybe it just needs to find the right home. And I think it already has a home. Now, you guys know I'm talking about an Elusives deck that runs Encroaching Shadows as a bit of a combo finisher. And if you watch this channel, you actually might have seen me play basically that deck already, which is the idea of Shadow Isles Elusives. I've run like kind of like Fading Memories and Greenglade Duo and stuff like Oblivious Islander in the deck as well. You would go for a lot of like combo finishers in a deck like that. And here I'm going to quickly show you guys exactly the kind of deck I mean. We can't build it card for card necessarily, but I can at least show you the framework. And I can say I think it's going to be super powerful. I was going to rate this one a swoon, but you know what, to be honest, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. I think this card is a Lux. I think it straight up defines the entire deck, and I think it's an entire reason for Elusives to move to Shadow Isles. Again, a deck that I've already experimented quite a bit with and have had very good results with. And like, I mean, to be real with you guys, it's like, it sort of kind of sucks. One of the things I really don't like too much is the fact that when it comes to like doing some of these like YouTube initial impressions kind of stuff, you're always so time rushed. Like when you're publishing on YouTube, it's like everyone wants like the news and the initial impressions so immediately. So we basically release it right away. But what this can cause is like a lot of things, literally like sometimes on my stream, because I'm always streaming and this is just, these reactions are just pulled from my stream on Twitch. But always how it goes is like after my initial impressions, within like 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have at least minorly, sometimes majorly tweaked my evaluations of some cards just off of like realizing certain combos, right? Like I think, for example, in my Rising Tides, I think when Vi was shown, I think I was like, yeah, it looks kind of bad, because I was looking at her as something that needed to level up. And like, literally like within 15 minutes, within 10 minutes even of like, you know, going through all the cards, I realized, wow, Vi is actually a really good card. But it's not like, you know, it's not the initial impressions. So a lot of people thought I was like majorly underrating Vi. And that's why I try to like update my pinned comments. Every time I do one of these reviews, I update my pinned comment to reflect exactly like how I'm feeling about the card, beyond the very, you know, flimsy initial impression. Anyway, enough about me. Let's actually build the deck now and show you guys what I mean and why I think it's going to be so strong. Okay, so the core of this deck is obviously Blade Scout, Greenglade Duo, pretty much all the elusives that you're going to see. However, one very notable inclusion, you know, is the idea of Fading Memories. Fading Memories is really good with Greenglade Duo, because Greenglade Duo is just kind of like a categorically unfair card that when you clone it, it can basically just win you games. So how this deck works a lot is you just like, you play a couple of duos. Because we have 3 Fading Memories and 3 Greenglade Duos, we're drawing like 2 or 3 duos total per game, right? We combo them with Blade Scouts, we combo them with Keeper of the Masks, and we can also combo them with a few other tools that these regions have at their disposal, right? Let's add Navori Conspirator, a little bit more elusive beef. But another unique thing that this deck does is we run Oblivious Islander, right? Because elusives are all about that, like, or at least this style of elusives is all about that combo kill. And Elusive Islander being able to discount something on your going off turn for later is actually really impactful. A very common opener with this deck is Islander on 1 and then Conspirator on 2. So what you've basically accomplished doing is you've gotten a nice elusive body on turn 2. You can replay the Islander later, and it even has a positive play effect because it just allows you to transfer your mana into your going off turn so that you can play more cards. Because again, the combo is just a big ephemeral finish. You play like a duo that's low mana off of Islander, you clone it off of Fading Memories and play another duo. Sometimes you play a third, you play like a Blade Scout into a Keeper, and suddenly you have like 10, 15, sometimes even 20 damage, right? Now, if you have seen some of like the clips of me playing this deck, you'll note that I was running Haunted Relic at a certain point in time, because the idea was like, you know, when you do it with Haunted Relic, it's a ridiculous amount of damage. Unfortunately, that's probably not quite worth using as a strategy. It's probably just a little bit too flimsy. So I'm not really in love with the idea of trying to go for it here. However, speaking of the new cards, one thing we definitely would be able to add into this list for value, of course, absolutely, we do have the, you know, the Encroaching Shadows, like I was showing before. But in addition to Encroaching Shadows, and this card is insane, and I'll kind of talk about its position in this list a little bit later. In addition to Encroaching Shadows, we also have another one of the cards that was recently revealed, Young Witch. Now, I commented when this card got revealed, a lot of people said immediately, oh man, this card's going to be bad. And I said specifically, you know what? It's a 2-mana, 1/1 elusive. There's only so bad it can be. Like, you know, it's got 2 attack because of its support, so it's just like a cheap elusive in Ionia. It will always eventually find a home. I think it already has. I will happily play this in this deck, because all we want is more cheap elusives to be able to play. And you can develop this proactively. It's sort of like a Green Glade duo that doesn't grow, but as it turns out, a Green Glade duo that doesn't grow is still a very competitively viable card. And we just want to make sure we're growing all of our units this entire time. So the really big thing with this deck is that Encroaching Shadows is just like an insane finisher. It's sort of like it's almost like a 4-mana win for a hatchling. It doesn't buff elusives that are already on the board, but what it does do is it is just insanely cheap. You can play this before turn 7, right? You can even use mana on the same turn as well. And that's so incredibly valuable in terms of what it means for the combo. A really, really common way this deck was losing was off of its elusives just not having enough health. It made them vulnerable to stuff like, you know, anything. Make It Rain, Static Shock, Mystic Shot, Vile Feast, Withering Wail, Avalanche even. Really anything. And this completely solves that problem, right? Encroaching Shadows completely solves that entire issue, to the point where, I mean, this deck could be really scary really fast. So we're going to add some of the staples at this point. Concussive Palm, Shadow Assassin, you know, a couple good ones. I kind of like doing these, like, I already have it built in my head, but I like showing it to you guys live. It's sort of like, I don't know what it is. I feel like a cooking show. I feel like Gordon Ramsay, you know. We're gonna just add a little bit of this, add a little bit of Vile Feast, you know, make it a little more delicious. Add a little bit of lamb sauce in the form of Glimpse Beyond, you know, draw into our combo pieces. And again, I can't give you like the full card deck because we don't know exactly what the new cards are going to bring or what that's all going to look like. But this is the concept here, and Encroaching Shadows is an absolutely huge way for this deck to be able to close out games. So, you guys can expect me to be playing this deck on day 1 or day 2 of the expansion. I've eventually been able to admit to myself so that I'm a dirty elusives boy, and I'm comfortable with that. But what that does mean is, you know, I will have on day 1 or day 2, like, kind of my version of this deck. We could run Shadows here. We could run, like, Soul Shepherd. You know, we could find ways of running quite a few of these cards, like Solitary Monk is decent. One thing we probably won't need is Twin Disciplines anymore, right? 1 or 2 denies to help protect our strategy against, you know, a couple of different things. You know, bada bing, bada boom, you've got just kind of like a built-in elusive combo deck. So I think that this idea has the potential to be quite strong. Now, what I will say, and I do want to be like very, very clear about this, is as nuts as this card is, I don't necessarily think this deck will definitively be tier 1 or anything like that. I think this will be a brand new sub-archetype that is basically immediately heralded off the back of a single card. Now, what that means is, and this is really, really important to note, as good as this card is, and I think this deck will be quite good, I'm not claiming that this deck will be tier 1. It might be tier 2, I'm not really sure. But that doesn't stop this card, the Encroaching Shadows, it doesn't stop Encroaching Shadows from being, in my mind, deluxe, because what it means to be a nuts card doesn't necessarily mean it has to be in a tier 1 deck, but just like single-handedly stemming an entire sub-archetype build around concept and getting an entire archetype to switch to a different color and concept because of how powerful it is, rates this card Lux value in my book. I think it's pretty insane, and I could be wrong about this. This is kind of the first big hot take, the first really big hot take I've laid on you guys so far. I think this card is actually a pretty insane addition to the game. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.